Hello, dear friends. I have here a copy of the Diary of Frida Kahlo, an intimate self-portrait. Now, I originally came across this diary in my Great Diaries series, that wonderful book that took us through so many different wonderful diaries of different people throughout the ages. And the Frida Kahlo one seemed so interesting, so unique, I felt I had to purchase it. So join me on this whispered guide, this whispered exploration of a very, very unique diary. I don't speak Spanish very well. I can speak a tiny bit, enough to get me by on a holiday. But I think what we'll find is that this transgresses through language. And as this little essay says at the beginning, reading through Frida Kahlo's diary is unquestionably an act of transgression, an undertaking inevitably charged with an element of voyeurism. The journal is a deeply private expression of her feelings, and was never intended to be viewed publicly. As such, Kahlo's diary belongs to the genre of the journal in time, a private record written by a woman for herself. So join me as we work our way through the Diary of Frida Kahlo. So we have here the image of the great woman herself, and I guess the leather-bound cover. So what's quite interesting is this, if this is the first page, there's obviously a bit of collage, a bit of cutout here. This image of herself, this photograph she's put in, it reminds me a little bit of a tombstone, a memoriam, a dove flying over the top. So pinned to 1916. What's interesting here is that the writing, the no luna sol diamante, manos yerma puesto meo gasar mar de pino, perrio rosa ocho mina con alodo madre voy. I don't, like I say, I don't speak a lot of Spanish, but I can see moon, sun, diamonds, days, is it? Pinot verde, pinot green, something, como lo madre, mother, amor, love, amarillo, de dos, niño. So of course I'm sure there will be Spanish speakers watching this, so I would love you to take a look at this diary with me and perhaps let us know a little bit about what is written here, because it seems a little bit like she's, rather than writing any coherent entry points, she's instead a lovely stream of consciousness here, like these 2nd of May, 4th of May, 7th of May. No ve el color, tiene el color, haga la forma, no la mira. It's these thoughts that are coming to her mind, and she's just throwing them down there. The ego verdad es muy grande, que no que se ni hablan. So this looks like it's written a letter. She's written out maybe a draft of a letter to a Diego. Now this is quite difficult to read because on the other side we can see the ink is smeared through to this wonderful ink drawing here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. A kind of surrealist map of eyeballs and shell-like images, geometry. Todo eso está intacto. Today, something about intact perhaps, I'm not sure, but this doesn't look very intact, does it? This looks like a marvellous fragmentation of thought and memory. We have here almost like a Roman mosaic. Yeah. What's interesting is that you can just imagine, can't you, just these thoughts being put out here, and then just grabbing another pen and just dotting away, and just allowing these ideas to come to you. You've got like a little hand there. Is that breasts, perhaps? A face, a bird, swirls. We're getting into, yes, these jagged designs. You can see a number of birds coming through here in the thought process and our thinking. The borders around. Números, la economía, la fase de la palabra, los cívicos azules son, no sé por qué también rojos, pero llenos de color. Fue el número en los radio colorido. Las estrellas están hechas y los mundos son sonido. Yo no quisiera abrigas mil años, presanga todo se mueve el compás de lo que enciende la panza. And different colours here, for some pink, solferino, azteca, talapi, vivo y antico. Electricity, electricity and power, perhaps. It's almost like she's walking down a street and seeing brand names, shop names. But we can already see this fascination with colour. Colour is coming up regularly as a key word in many of these musings. Is she seeing colour in her every day? Is she not seeing colour? This is German. It's interesting. You're practicing German. Und die Trakte. Es ist Gesicht und der Magie hat ein Durchstagmuse und der Eisfisch hat Jahre und die Trakt es im Gesicht und der Magie hat ein Messer, doch das Messer sieht man nicht. Mexico, Krakow, Paris, New York. I wonder if she's... Why would she be practicing German? Well, it's interesting, so this is 1916, so this is in the midst of the First World War, but she is on the other side of the world in South America. Perhaps she's practicing for certain political reasons. Diego coming up a lot here. More of these wonderful images. You can almost see in a way with these etchings, you can see a kind of influence on pop art. A few decades later, there's an element of Basquiat, an element of Herring to these images, definitely Basquiat. Here with these images here. Mi Diego, my Diego. Espeo de la noche. Something about the night. There. Actually, jumping into this blind, I do feel like I should have taken some sort of Spanish primer, because there's a huge amount of value that we're missing out. I think at the end there is a translation, so we can delve into what some of these thoughts are. But again, this concept of eyeballs, shells, this netting, this webbing. Here we have the idea of a tree expanding out, these kind of fern, or almost like, if you think about these shells, to me it's almost like this these images of eyes, these eyeballs under the sea, watching, always watching, tears streaming down. Maybe they're not happy at what they see. Maybe it's the sadness of nature, the sadness of the sea, perhaps. We can see something seeping through the next page, and I think this is where we get into some serious illustrations. This looks like a chocolate packaging, and here she's illustrated maybe a chocolate packaging or something like that. Is that what that means? July 13th, 1945, Frida Kahlo. Some vegetation, nature growing out of it, almost as if it's been reclaimed by nature, and the packaging is rotting away. Perhaps this is just something she saw and has sketched and etched and claimed for herself. And here we have, she's just listed out a number of things that begin with an A. Adalgisa, Agurio, Aliento, Aroma, Amor, Antina, Ave, Abismo, Azura, Amiga, Azurarina, Alambre. Yeah, I don't know if this is the seeping of ink over time, but it's almost like she was writing it out and she's just painted over the second half of this writing. We've got almost like a kind of Roman bust there, a woman with looks like a hand or a claw. It's almost like, I hope this isn't ignorant to say, but there's a kind of element of a bruised banana. But it's that thing of something that's beautiful and nutritious and lovely, kind of aging over time and taking over everything, which I suppose has parallels to that. Of course, this is all my own personal interpretation of a very open to interpretation journal, so I'm more than happy for people in the comments to let me know what they take from these visuals. And visuals we have, look at this, stunning. So we have here, of course, her we can always recognise her in her self-portraiture with the famous eyebrows, but she's added a beard, long hair. She's almost like a kind of Nebuchadnezzar, leader of early civilization, all-seeing eye. And here we have an image of the reproductive organs of a male and female on show with a baby. Is she holding the baby, or is this almost like a cross-section of the fetus in the womb? It looks like she's holding the baby. But the writing here, Parea extrana del punto e la rea, casa con bellisma, nefarisis, house with beautiful nefarisis. Beautiful rich purples. Sua mano neveltos. We got again this image of the all-seeing eye. It's almost like a pharaoh-like image here. Again, what have we got? Like a breast on the neck, and some sort of cord. Now, I must admit, I know, of course, a lot about Frida Kahlo in terms of her work and her artwork. I haven't actually studied or explored much of her life. There's a big bit at the beginning of this book, which is a mini biography, I suppose, of her life. But I wanted to just jump into this and explore with you and see if I could get a sense of the person through their musings and their artwork. But I can see somebody who's very clearly interested in anatomy, the internal anatomy. It's very interesting to see there previously the image of motherhood, almost as a vivisectomy as opposed to a traditional image of a father and a mother and a baby, almost like it's a science book. You know, it suggests to me that there is a fascination there with complications in childbirth, or she wishes to have a child, but is struggling to do so. Or it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've got this image as well of birds and doves and peas, and there's a bit of kind of iconography, a lot of iconography here. You could say that's like the speak, see no evil, speak no evil, perhaps. Maybe that's a little bit of a tenuous connection, but it's all this blotching of colour that I love as well. It's vibrant, but at the same time decaying. So hopeful as well as melancholic. I suppose we have a bit of that here, don't we? These elements of black seeping through. We've got like black leaf staining the page, and whatever that is, I mean, it looks like some sort of coral item, or maybe even a heart, something vascular. We've got, like, is that pigs there? A pig eating something bloody, perhaps. Bulls, peppers, perhaps. We've got the image of people here, lots of, there we go, look at it, we've got the image of a penis there next to what looks like a baby and a naked woman. So yes, there is a high level of fascination here for the biological. Is that like an airplane head, the all-seeing eye, and a pharaoh, goddess, god. Soldato. Maybe it's some sort of gun or some sort of weapon, perhaps. Wow, look at this. Mundo Real, look at the colours. Absolutely beautiful. Is that an image of a defecating person, perhaps? In front of other images of, again, the soaring birds. We have here like wallabies or kangaroos, some sort of frog prints imagery here. Dancing, sunshine, insects, the Anubis, so there's obviously a lot of fascination with the mythological and iconoclastic. We've got that black stain coming through again there. Something quite regal about this image here of a bird-like woman. Here we have what looks like some sort of temple or hierarchy of, I guess it looks like women in various states of, I mean, is this, what is this? Is this balloons? Is it eggs? Actually, it looks like sperm, doesn't it? The mitochondria here, eggs. And she's collecting them. And we have people in various compromising positions, perhaps. Monumento estupido. Does that mean stupid? Like a stupid monument? Almost like shocked faces in the background looking at it. We have here, again, this kind of anthropomorphic, reptilian-like female. Cups, and there's just something so. I think this looks like this looks like an image of a breast from previous images that she's made as well. You can just see how deeply personal this is. Stunning work, but how deeply personal. Because we've got teary faces, sadness, almost superimposed onto joy, dancing, two-facedness, perhaps. Here we have la desintegración, disintegrating. You are the disintegration, you are disintegrating. A head, a hand, on a pedestal, perhaps. Now this does reinforce that idea to me of you're running out of time, you're falling apart. Look, this is the youthful elements of you falling away, and you've been put up on a pedestal to be admired, but you're falling apart. Time is running out, perhaps. These two-headed icons on the woman's body as well. And this idea of nature reclaiming and roots overrunning. Yep, we have more biology here. Phallus, eyes that see. So the interesting placement, I mean, it's interesting that there is the natural placement of what you would perceive as the all-seeing eye on the forehead. But then you've also got on the neck, on the knees. I wonder why they're placed there. The neck is often, it's very vulnerable. You have your jugulars there, your jugular vein there. It's, why would an eyeball need to be there to see, to protect, to warn, perhaps? We've got quite stark imagery here of what looks like a woman and is that a baby? Like a large, she's morphed into a baby on her lower half. It's like she's sketching out women in repose, perhaps in childbirth, perhaps in labour. And these side profiles against a cacophony of colour. Those greens are quite sickly, aren't they? It's quite a nauseous image to me. Wow, I get heat and pain. It's almost, the colour palette just hits me. It's almost like the dying embers of a fire. And we've got almost like this kind of black hole, this suction point of this flame and this pain, and all of these eyes looking back as we look into this burning pit of what once was. Almost these kind of grim pustules, these curvatures. We've got the images of the soaring birds that we've seen before, but they're now almost seeping into dripping darkness. And more women in repose, and these blottings. I wonder if sometimes you can almost imagine the strike, right? Because these paint brush marks are so similar. There's it's almost like a real forced paintbrush jab, a stab, a pain. Here we have that's quite an interesting image, isn't it? It's almost like voodoo. Stabbed pins. Is that her, or it now looks a little bit like a male face, just the outline of it. But again, we've got Diego, Frida, look. Diego, a brother perhaps. I don't really know much about her life. But we have these kind of Phoenician, griffin-like images as well. The yin-yang there. So she's wrestling a lot with religion and history and iconography and perspective. There's a mention of 1953 down there, so we've jumped quite far ahead in time. I wonder if, yes, I suppose that the complexity of some of the image work here, whether or not was this done quickly, did she keep coming back to it? We have this fascination with faces, particularly faces looking in this direction. And it always looks a little bit like she's written something down, had some thoughts, but then the visual artist in her has overridden it all. She wants to replace her thoughts in the written word with the visual. And again, there's something almost quite monolithic with all of these profiles. Wow. September Is that a concept of communism, perhaps? We've got here this kaleidoscope of faces. Are they marbles, berries, bubbles? People all of different ilk and faces. It looks like different ethnicities. Wow, that's quite a here we've seen quite often a number of quite sterile or clinical faces just looking to the side, but this one is the first I've seen that you can feel a depth of emotion and expression. There's again that element of melancholy, almost that element of tiredness, sadness, and this kind of knowing look of pain, almost. Yin yang there again, so the concepts of peace and balance, harmony. Weeping faces, weeping individuals. It looks like we have, again, phallic. I wonder if there's almost like a hermaphrodite element here, where she's incorporating the reproductive organs of male and female into one body, one mass. This is, or perhaps this is just a kind of slightly erotic image of bodies and limbs all joining together, the roots. In a way, you could chart this journey of like the roots of life and humanity, fueling passion, and then almost in a way regret as you work your way upwards with these crying faces. Naturales bien muerta. Does that mean dead? Naturalism is dead, perhaps. As we've got a still life image here of, but again, faces in the vase work, and flowers. Madre, mother, coming up largely at the bottom there. The writing here has become larger. It's become, in a way, there's something that I feel I relate to it a little bit in terms of personal writing, personal journal keeping. That these font sizes in the earlier part of the journal are considered and calculated, but now there's no consideration whatsoever for the space on the page. It's big, it's bold, it's fast, it's rash, it's running ahead of itself. You can almost imagine here the mind is working faster than the pen can keep up. There's these blots all over the page, little dabs, little ink marks all over. You can really get a sense of the energy and the attitude of the individual as they're filling it in. Diego, 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 Diego. Diego Principio, Diego Constructor, Diego, me, something, me. She's rephrasing, mi madre, Diego, my mother. So, my universe, Diego, universe. Porque le amo mi Diego. And again, this imagery, these plots. This is like a kind of arid landscape, almost like a binary sunset there, like some sort of penguin or these animals coming in, dogs. But again, it's these swirlings, these pencil swirlings going into a dark hole. You know, if I were going to continue with this reproductive theme that does feel quite prevalent throughout the journal, it's almost like umbilical, right? You've got all of these lines frantically joining into holes and into dark spaces. That's almost like some sort of devil imagery, isn't it? Goat-like with the horns and the long piercing tongue, kind of serpent-like and goat-like at the same time. Joined in parallel almost with this reclining woman as she looks like there is again some sort of embryonic cocoon-like entity there in the womb or the womb area. These wonderful concentric shapes there as well. Yes, we're definitely getting some religious hell-like imagery, aren't we? Fire, flames, the feet, hell, well, there appears, yeah, like the sun, or something of the sun, out of the sun perhaps, and these angel-like figures. That is definitely sperm. That's got to be, right? That can't just be just pen scrawling. That is absolutely what I think it is. Don't you think? Almost like you've got Tree of Life. But it's very interesting that it's contextualized within the concept of hell. Centro io, no. Yeah, is she putting herself or putting somebody here at the center of flowers? And again, it's very, well, it is phallic. I mean, look at them. Into a flower, which again is often quite associated symbolically, of course, in female reproductive parts. Is that a face there? Yes, that is yonic, isn't it? You can see there the shape. It's, you know, it's not erotic or anything like that. There's something, you know, it's bloody. It's painful. It's none of that. That's a piece. Got some collage here. She's taken a photograph and gone over it. I don't know if this is, she's taken an image that might have been considered pornographic perhaps in that time, and she's illustrated over it, made it more classical, given hair and a dress. And here's Sandia 379 Diciembre. It's almost like she's drawn out some sort of new title or new sections, maybe the title of a new collection. There's something about dance here, but again, I love images like this. I mean, this is obviously a very private image because it's in her journal, but you can imagine that framed in a gallery, can't you? How wonderful is that? Not only does it take the movement of dance, these flailing limbs, the multi-tiered limbs and the legs almost like the foundation of a forest, the lighting and the colour is festive, it's carnival, and then I just love how in this it's juxtaposed by this religious like imagery, this amazing imagery, almost pagan image of the moon and the sun and the stars and the mother and child, but you know, multiple different protectors and carers. And you can see how the ink from the other side is kind of blotted onto the other side as well through the green text here as well. There's something about the way in which these pages and these thoughts all just merge together. The visual, the scattered thoughts, the corrections, Diego coming back time and time and time again. It's stunning, isn't it? And we have here idiota. Are they referring to themselves as being an idiot, or this person perhaps is an idiot, or again they're in this kind of isometric shape of doors, windows, puppetry, eggs perhaps, maybe they're eggs or maybe they're breasts, I don't know. But we've got the same concept being applied into a pen drawing here, an etching of a massive faces and eyes all coagulating, almost like a kind of diamond, a crystalline structure within a barrier. See here you can see the here with the origin de las dos Fridas. You can see now the writing has taken on more of a considered, structured tone. The dos Fridas. Is this perhaps concepts for my secreto. Somebody, a secret idea, a secret place perhaps. Here we have a hand holding. It's interesting, isn't it? What is this, do you think? A cracked bottle. Was that an image of an individual, a person? Almost ghost-like, doll-like. Ashes, perhaps. What is this hand holding? It looks again like a coagulated mass of something. Is it something rotted? Because we have the nice colour scheme here, and then the dark, angry reds. And the red across. Pencil writing here as well. Complete no sabo que nos dio. This angelic imagery again of the naked female form with wings. Sueño. These rings are almost like they almost look to me like cup rings, glass rings. People placing down glasses on top of it. Lear, a Lenin, a Stalin. And there's a reference here to revolutionary. Here. This looks more like a traditional diary entry, doesn't it? It's written 1910 to 1953. That's not quite traditional. That's quite a vast expanse of time. 1950 to 1951 there. There she is again, and perhaps she's drawn herself as both male and female. You could either see that as a veil, or you could see that almost like needles, pins, holding her into place. These tears being made into some sort of chalice or some cup, crying, broken. I mean, I would take this quite literally. I think it's a vessel. She's seeing herself as a vessel, and it's broken. They're broken cups, right? They're broken vessels. She's unable to hold what she needs to hold as a vessel. So this is certainly something about the lack of reproduction, or the inability to reproduce, I think, or something has happened in the act of giving birth or wanting to have children, for sure. Vivir, morir, 4 de marzo de 1953, el mundo, Mexico, todo el universo. Patio el Equini, Stalin. This is Stalin visiting the University of Mexico, perhaps, or talking about Stalin at the University of Mexico. Mater 379. Revolutionary. Viva Stalin, viva Diego. So yes, this is looking at a communist revolution. Here, I'm painting this image here, quite strong, quite stark. It's almost like this is kind of guerrilla war paint, or a shadow perhaps. The imagery of the foot, perhaps stamping the foot down. I mean, you couldn't get any more obvious than this, I suppose. If we were in any doubt now about the communist implications, I think they are now very much discarded. Engels, Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao. These are some very unfortunate idols if she does idolise them. But I suppose it's easy to say that with hindsight, isn't it? Perhaps at the time, what these people were doing and what these people were advocating was huge systemic change that you were observing from the other side of the world. You're not necessarily living it, but you see the idea of it, and perhaps when you're looking back on your own lot, you consider that these individuals are the people that you need to emulate to make change happen on your own terms. The moon and sun again, almost like kind of Chichen Itza, Aztec buildings. Muertos. we've got here like skeletons. Yeah, Madera Sitlani, Mamor, Galor, Dolor, Rumo, Humo, Dado, Amor. It's quite almost like a pastoral scene here, a rustic scene. Some sort of building with the roots beneath the soil, but again very much concerned with not just nature doing pastoral scenes, but most of the page here is dedicated to the roots beneath the soil, that which gives life. And then directly on the other side we've got this imagery of the bird coming back in again, and these lines, these aggressive lines that cut off across the head and the neck. Yeah, they're interesting indeed, aren't they? This is an illustration of a horse, perhaps, at sunset. The idea of eyes here again into some sort of still life imagery, but a bit of geometry above that too. Colorado is starting to be mentioned quite a few times, which is interesting. What is it about Colorado? She's looking at she's doing images of either horses or Parla Antica. I mean, she could have actually just been using this as notes at university. I mean, what is this making? Some sort of experiment, perhaps. Maybe she's currently going through education and is using the journal as a form of note-taking. We've got some English here. How do you do, Mr. Salto? But again, we're bringing back in this quite blotted, aggressive imagery. We've got here the image that was taken from the cover, Te vas no a las rotas. And again, this imagery is almost like a fairy-like imagery, but angel again, this time in an absolute cavalcade, a dress of, I don't know, is that feathers, and is it a cocoon almost? It's fascinating, isn't it? Now we got here, again, more crying, more tears. That's, again, I suppose the sun, but it's looking almost, again, either on fire or even egg-like. You know, you see these images of eggs in the womb. That's what it looks like to me. We've got more nature here, but again, it's the strokes. You can feel the emotion through the strokes, can't you? These jabs, these marks throughout. Everything is written very much in some kind of list form, isn't it? It's Diego. Everything ends with Diego. Yeah, there an image of a pair of feet, almost as again a vessel, but for dead leaves, for dead branches, thorny, perhaps. Your feet, your foundations. Pies para que los hierros y tengo alas pavoras, 1953. And here we have a bird again, but this time within eggs. Well, are they eggs? No, they're fruit. So, got pineapple there, plums and melons. Ruins. That's an interesting interpretation of the sun, isn't it? Above these ruins, these old Aztec ruins, Mayan ruins, the sun is jutting out in almost lightning. The heat and the power coming through over ruins. Tocado no loco. Tocado isn't crazy. I'm guessing that says or something like that. With this huge headset on, with spikes and adornments. Is this some sort of religious leader or a historical figure, perhaps? Well, that's fascinating, isn't it? Is that some sort of prosthesis? We've got the image here of, again, the angelic image of woman with the bird. We've got the anonymous Bosch here, perhaps, actually. So maybe she's trying out some Bosch inspired pieces. We've got the esophageal tract down here leading into the female reproductive organs. Is this apoyo numero dos? Some sort of prosthesis. Looks very robotic, doesn't it? And imageries here. Again, you can just see how this is very much written for the eyes of the writer only. This isn't written for anybody. Great colours here. Diego, con mi amor, with my love. Diego. It's stunning colours. Again, there's the hint of being naked, but it's now been coloured over by almost Librador kind of colours, isn't it? There's lovely, stunning landscape imagery here. These are yellows, but the red blotches, they don't quite sit right to me. They look alien. They look violent within the context of the imagery. We have here what looks like a self-portrait. Now, I don't know, was she an amputee? I don't know, but if she isn't, she's presented herself here as if she's the subject of some sort of anatomy book. And we saw before, of course, the futuristic imagery of a prosthetic there, the prosthesis that went all the way up to the groin. Here she's given herself a wooden prosthesis from the knee down. This looks like imagery taken from people in either rural areas or from other cultures. Portraiture. Yeah, there's, yin yang there on a kind of neck ornament and horses running free. To me, it's almost, yes, it's escapism, it's pure escapism. These horse imageries, these horse images and the pastoral scenes, it's almost like I can imagine her being in a built-up or urban landscape, and in her journal she escapes to these mythological lands of angels and fixing bodies and people with iconography and jewellery and horses running free and roaming free. We've got here, of course, again, more angelic looks, but again, far more chaotic. Tears are coming into it. It seems that whenever we see the imagery of the images of tears entering into the pages, that's almost always accompanied with smudging and smearing and a vibrant clash of colour. That's actually the end of it. Yes, I wasn't expecting that. I was really getting into it. So this is the last thing she did. It's almost like an ascension there, isn't it? So we do have translation of the diary with commentaries. Yes, that first page is a prelude to the journal and the surreal world found in its pages. That says painted in 1916. So she announces in crimson the year she was 9. It's a private joke, apparently. The viewer is not entitled to understand fully. So that text that followed on the other side, it functions as a kind of, the early entries function as a kind of poetry. No moon, sun, diamond, hands, fingertip, dot, ray, gauze, sea, pine, green, pink, glass, eye, mine, eraser, mud, mother, I am coming. Equals yellow, love, fingers, useful, child, flower, wish, artifice, resin, pasture, bismuth, saint, soup. Yes, interesting. As you can see, yeah, it's almost like a stream of consciousness. And that May 2nd, 4th, 7th, he doesn't see the colour, he has the colour. I make the shape, he doesn't look at it, he doesn't give the life he has life. Warm and white is his voice, he stayed but never arrived, I'm leaving. So this is these letters here, Diego. The first numerous letters in the journal addresses to Rivera, letters that speak to the deep and abiding bond between them in spite of infidelities and a brief divorce. Okay, so Diego is a husband, is a partner. Kahlo shared them with Rivera after she had set them down with pen and ink, and they read much like her famous portrait of Diego. Their love letters are sought, but many such as this one are filled with an unbearable anguish. Diego, truth is so great that I wouldn't like to speak or sleep or listen or love, to feel myself trapped with no fear of blood, outside time and magic, within your own fear and your great anguish, and within the very beating of your heart. all this madness, if I asked it of you? I know in your silence there would be only confusion. I ask you for violence in the nonsense, and you give me your grace, your light, and your warmth. I'd like to paint you, but there are no colours, because there are so many in my confusion, the tangible form of my great love. Every moment he is my child, my newborn babe, every little while, every day my own self. Here's some interpretations of the imageries that we looked at. There's a melancholy letter here which she speaks of a sad parting at quayside. Since you wrote to me on that clear, distant day, I've wanted to explain to you that I can't get away from the days or return in time to that other time. I have not forgotten you. The nights are long and difficult. The water, the ship and the dock, and the parting which made you appear so small into my eyes, framed in that round portal, and you gazing at me so as to keep me in your heart. Everything is untouched. Later came the days, new of you. Today I wish my son could touch you. I tell you, your eyeball is my eyeball. The puppet characters all arranged in their large glass room belong to us both. Yours is the hue bill with magenta ribbons, mine the ancient squares of your Paris, above all, the magnificent Devouge, so forgotten and firm. The snail shells and the bride doll is yours too. I mean, it is you. Her dress is the same one she wouldn't take off on the day of the wedding to no one when we found her half asleep on the dirty sidewalk of some street. My skirts with their lace flounces and the antique blouse I always wore paint the absent portrait of only one person. But the colour of your skin, of your eyes and your hair change with the winds in Mexico. You too know that all my eyes see, all I touch with myself from any distance is Diego. The caress of fabrics, the colour of colours, the wires, the nerves, the pencils, the leaves, the dust, the cells, the war and the sun, everything experienced in the minutes of the non-clocks and the non-calendars and the empty non-glances is him. You felt it, that's why you let that ship take me away from the Havre when you never said goodbye to me. I will write to you with my eyes always. Kiss, the little girl. Such a beautiful way with words, it's so anguished, so painful. Oh, that's interesting, this page here, that all of the different colours. It literally says, I'll try out the pencil sharpened to the point of infinity, which always sees ahead. Green, good warm light. Magenta, Aztec, old Telapali, blood of prickly pear, the brightest and oldest. Colour of mole, of leaves becoming earth. Madness, sickness, fear, part of the sun and of happiness, electricity and purity, love. Nothing is black, really nothing. Leaves, sadness, science, the whole of Germany is this colour. More madness and mystery, all the ghosts wear clothes of this colour, or at least their underclothes. Colour of bad advertisements and of good business, distance, tenderness can also be this blue blood, well, who knows? Mac the knife, and threepenny opera. Copying from a source other than herself. Ah, okay, so this is, yeah, Mac the knife in Brecht, the German. An amorous letter here to Diego, the 8-page entry, the long one. I'll just read a little excerpt of it here. Nothing compares to your hands, nothing like the green gold of your eyes. My body is filled with you for days and days. You are the mirror of the night, the violent flash of lightning, the dampness of the earth. The hollow of your armpits is my shelter. My fingertips touch your blood. All my joy is to feel life spring from your flower fountain that mine keeps to fill all the paths of my nerves which are yours. Stunning. She's so visceral with her language, isn't she? This does make me long for the days of writing letters. Perhaps I'll start writing letters to my wife in secret and posting them as a surprise. There's something about a handwritten letter, isn't there? You couldn't imagine this being written in an email. On WhatsApp, could you? A signal message, telegram. It's not quite romantic. So letter after letter after letter for Diego. Ah, what was this? Yes, it was chocolate, that's good, I got that right. She draws twigs, vines and leaves growing from a thick block of chocolate. This is the etymological source of the New World plant known as cacao. We got here is a bizarre double portrait of the fictitious Neferesis. So the Egyptian goddess Nefertiti, I guess. Yeah. And here is, yes, that's when I was talking about the mythological or the religious iconography. Yes, we can see these ancient Egyptian influences. Yes, that did say stupid monument. The dansantes. I am disintegration, so I was quite close with that assessment. The phenomenon unforeseen. So she labels the surreal and somewhat grotesque drawing below left the phenomenon unseen. And indeed, it's an image both strange and disturbing. The figure is a monstrous hybrid, multi-limbed and many-headed, with extra sense organs, an ear and eyes, and sexual parts distributed throughout. What Kahlo began as a doodle or an automatic drawing becomes a manifestation of her unconscious. In this, as in many other images, both in her painting and her diary, Kahlo's nude women are virtually never shown as objects of desire. That is true. This image here is how ugly people are. This is one of Kahlo's most haunting images. That face that I said that looked like it conveyed the most amount of sadness and melancholy that I saw. The floating face is a material emanation of thought for the figure below, which vaguely resembles Kahlo herself. The mysteriousness to the drawing, floating heads with deep-set eyes fading in and out of each other. And the text that was underneath it too, it's no use, moon, dreadful and alone banal, isn't it? It's superficial, don't you think? I desire clearly, break it. A very still life is what that said. Why do I call him my Diego? He never was or will be mine. He belongs to himself. A polar landscape there. Okay, dogs playing with thread. I was miles off on that one. In a more playful mood, Kahlo's colourful curlicue crayon lines animate the page. The pall of illness is gone, and one senses the simple pleasure Kahlo had watching her dogs roughhouse together and committing their likeness to paper. It's interesting, isn't it, how the absence of language forces you to really draw your own conclusions. And I wonder if you are actually truly off, because of course the literal language may be telling you it's dogs playing with a thread, but if you aren't influenced by the language at all, perhaps you do see the subtext, perhaps you do see pain and anguish that was perhaps still there, even in the simple joys of watching dogs play. Or maybe not. That was August Heaven, the Earth, me and Diego. So here it's handwriting is loose. Yes, you can tell the change in energy here. Handwriting is loose and somewhat uncontrolled, quite possibly the result of large doses of painkillers she began taking after a particularly gruesome operation and its painful aftermath in 1946. Some now unknown psychic pain caused Kahlo to erupt into her diary. I wish I could do whatever I liked behind the curtain of madness. Then I'd arrange flowers all day long. I'd paint pain, love and tenderness. I'd laugh as much as I feel like at the stupidity of others, and they would all say, poor thing, she's crazy. Above all, I'd laugh at my own stupidity. I'd build my world, which, while I lived, would be in agreement with all the worlds. The day, the hour, or the minute that I lived would be mine and everyone else's. My madness would not be an escape from work. Why did the others support me with their labour? Revolution is the harmony of form and colour, and everything exists and moves under only one law in life. Nobody is separate from anyone else. Nobody fights for himself. Everything is all and one. Anguish and pain, pleasure and death are no more than a process for existence. The revolutionary struggle in this process is a doorway open to intelligence. Who is this idiot? Is what that was. This image here was quite stark, wasn't it? Facing a strange image of a bearded man with an encased dog. It could have belonged as a self-portrait, perhaps. Is another portrait, possibly a self-portrait with lines enclosing the figure, suggesting a veil of iron, or planes to be chipped away from a block of stone to make a statue, or even the dimensions of a coffin. Around her neck, the zigzags look like jewellery, but recall her painting The Broken Column from 1944. The look of distress is explained by the caption, "What a dish!" In other words, Kahlo, the beautiful, intelligent, passionate woman, has been barred from what other young women desire. Explaining the subject she painted, she remarked, "Nothing seemed more natural than to paint what had not been fulfilled." Don't come crying to me. Yes, I come crying to you. These pendant portraits repeat an image Kahlo used earlier, an anthropomorphic vase shown shattered. As vases, they make an unmistakable allusion to classical urns used as grave markers, and the captions are suggestive of an interior monologue, or in Kahlo's case, dialogue. They are self-portraits. Again, the two Fridas, red lips evoking Kahlo's lost youth and wasted womanliness. The tears are literal, referring to her immediate physical pain, and symbolic, underscoring her identification with the Madonna of Sorrows. This painting here, this one that I said was quite warlike. With the passing of Stalin, I always wanted to meet him personally, but it no longer matters. There is nothing left. Everything revolves. Malenkov. So the vile green background adds to the oppressive feeling of this ominous portrait. The iconic figure stands out intently, large eyes giving the impression of youth, but some alchemical magic. Two halves are made whole. On the left, a female with long curly hair and dress, and on the right, a male, hair cropped and flames surrounding his head like a halo bear. Kahlo painted two portraits in 44 of herself and Rivera as a single head, but the features here are so stylized that an absolute correspondence is uncertain. Thick black lines of ink further obscure the identities. The enigmatic caption, Wood 379, offers no clue, though it is a number Kahlo used earlier in her journal. This grim drawing is actually referring to the premature death of Kahlo's friend Isabel, Jabela Villaseñor, to whom Kahlo devotes the next 2 pages. Villaseñor, 7 years younger than Kahlo, was a precocious poet, graphic artist and muralist, and they met as early as 1928, when Villaseñor was associated with the vanguard artists of the 30-30 movement. Her future husband, the painter, printmaker and theatre designer Gabriel Fernandez Ledesma, was also a part of the group. Sergei Eisenstein cast Villaseñor as the star of one of the 4 sections of his epic film, Que Viva Mexico. Kahlo's praise of her friend on plate 121, thus not exaggerated. The final mention of Your Olinka is a poignant reference to Villaseñor's daughter. The deer. This is an image of a deer, not a horse. Symbol with meaning for Kahlo. It was a recurrent theme in pre-Columbian mythology, linked in fact with the right foot, Kahlo's deceased one. And in 46 she painted a self-portrait on the body of a wounded deer in The Little Deer. Okay, so yes, I was saying that earlier, wasn't I? Did she have a leg, have a foot? So it must have, there's something horrifying about the carefully drawn images and its attention to details. How, for instance, the feathered wings of this figure unfold naturally from the curved underarm, or how the shattered spinal column of the headless woman, now visible through a body held together by a wide belt, ends at the shoulders, a dove resting above. The thin spiral lining, certainly for the left leg, is reminiscent of Kahlo's etching Frida and the Miscarriage from 1932, in which an infant's umbilical cord is wrapped around Kahlo's leg in a devastating self-portrait. No less jarring than the image's Kahlo's doleful refrain, "The pigeon made mistakes, it made mistakes," which is ominously repeated on the next page. Instead of going north, it went south, it made mistakes. It thought the wheat was water, it made mistakes. And she's talking about the amputation of this leg. Oh wow. So yes, some serious trauma. 11th of February 1954. They amputated my leg 6 months ago. It seemed to be centuries of torture, and at times I nearly went crazy. I still felt like committing suicide. Diego prevents me from doing it in the vain belief that maybe he will need me. He has told me so and I believe him, but I had never suffered so much in my life. I'll wait a while. Oh no. The last 3 written entries are spaced a month apart, marking an extremely trying period for Kahlo. Thanks to the support of Rivera, her doctors and a circle of friends, she has moments of joy and gratitude that she expresses in her journal. Among her intimates at this time were Teresa Proenza, who was active in politics, and Judith Thoretto, one of the nurses who cared for her. April 27, 1954. I am well again. I've made a promise and I'll keep it, never to turn back. Thanks to Diego, thanks to my Terra, thanks to Gracia later and the little girl, thanks to Judith, thanks to Isidora Mino, thanks to Lupita Zuniga, thanks to Dr. Ramon Perez, thanks to Dr. Glasgow, thanks to Dr. Farrell, to Dr. Polo, to Dr. Armando Navarro, to Dr. Vargas, thanks to myself and to my powerful will to live among those who love me, and for all those I love. Long live joy, life, Diego, Tere, my Judith, and all the nurses I have had in my life who have taken care of me so marvellously well. Thanks for being a communist as I have been all my life. Thanks to the people of the Soviet Union, to the people of China, Czechoslovakia, and Poland, and to the people of Mexico above all. Those of Coyoacán, where my first son was born, which was conceived in Oaxaca, in the womb of my mother, who was born there, married to my father Guillermo Kahlo, my mother Matilda Calderon, dark-skinned Tinkerbell from Oaxaca. A beautiful afternoon we spent here in Coyoacán, in Frida's room, Diego, Terra, and myself, Miss Capellina, Mr. Soto, Mrs. Kostic. And then begins a 6-page autobiographical section, which biographers have relied for information about her early years. The handwriting is extremely unsure, though her determination to relate her history is intense. Her story is both lucid and vivid. She ends with a feeble sketch, graphic enough to convey her childhood memory of violent bloody deaths among the Zapatistas and the Caracitos, but very unlike her characteristic drawing style. So she's talking about battles that were taking place all around her. So the impact of plate 158, this one is more dramatic by the fact it follows Kahlo's sketchy images of dying soldiers doubled over in pain from their wounds. Kahlo, replacing her ink pen with a crayon and brush, broadly paints a self-portrait that is simultaneously jubilant and devastating. Despite her dismemberment, she appears whole, a line marking where she's lost her leg. Her stance and round large breasts denote Kahlo as superwoman, but doubt lingers, for example, in the ambiguous gesture of her arms. Do they signify joy or resignation? The colouring of the drawing contributes to its equivocal message. The complementary colours, orange and blue, are difficult for the eye to take in at the same time, and the purples and mauve washes are reminiscent of bruising and dried blood. Yes, that's how I thought. Envious one. This imagery here that I talked about as being escapism, this eerie painting is unlike any Kahlo ever made. Broad black lines, Kahlo divides the page in half and summarily paints the outlines of a landscape with a building and a running horse. The deep blue sky is unmodulated, as are the green and pink areas of the structure. The image is virtually flat, only the shadow of the horse signifies depth. With a few brushstrokes, Kahlo has rendered an incredibly oppressive scene. One can hear the steady hoofbeats of the horse, feel the sun bearing down, sense the isolation here at the ends of the earth, at the end of time. And below is the last image in Kahlo's diary, and one, many suppose, the last painting she ever made. It's an image of apocalyptic chaos and reckoning, of transformation and transportation. The heavens open, the sky is bathed in a pink light, rain and sunshine occur simultaneously. Who is the green-winged creature who floats towards the edges of the page? The ground implies it is a sovereign of heaven, but its blackened, wrapped legs and trail of blood speak to Kahlo's wholly subjective image of herself. The death she mocked but also feared, the end she longed for but fought valiantly against, is upon her. Few artists have had the audacity to picture their own departure from this world, but then few faced death on so regular a basis. Never had the often quoted statement by Kahlo seemed more appropriate. I never painted dreams. I painted my own reality. That was an incredible journey through the private diary of Frida Kahlo. This acts as a bit of a jumping off point for me. It was very enjoyable going through this with you for the very first time. I literally hadn't opened this book until I pressed record on the camera. So I wanted to go through it as freshly as possible with you, the viewer. And thank you so much for watching, because I'm going to go away now and really pore over this wonderful diary, get very acquainted with the wonderful Frida Kahlo. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to having you join me next time. But until then,